If we take a single date, June 25th, and drill a core sample straight down through 15 centuries of history, we capture a perfect cross-section of how humans wage war. At the bottom of that sample, in late antiquity, warfare is intensely intimate. Armies are small, combat is fought hand-to-hand, and the stakes are almost always tied directly to the bloodlines of competing kings. Take June 25th in the year 524. The Burgundians meet the Franks at the Battle of Vézérance. Survival here dictates standing shoulder to shoulder in a tightly packed infantry shield wall, stabbing at the men directly in front of you. Because victory at Vézérance relied on the physical strength of a shield wall, a king's influence was limited to the literal distance his infantry could march and the reach of their blades. Move up the timeline 3 centuries to June 25th, 841, and the scale expands. The Battle of Fontenay-en-Puisay shows armies getting larger and the territorial prizes growing in tandem. This map shows the 9th century Carolingian Empire. Charlemagne's grandsons fight for control of this unified bloc. Charles and Louis force Lothair to retreat, permanently cleaving the territory and sketching out the earliest borders of modern-day France and Germany. Over the next few centuries, this scaling up demands new logistics. By June 25th of 1258 at the Battle of Acre, and again on the same day in 1357 at Courtrai, combat moves onto the water. States are now coordinating complex naval fleets to control trade routes, pushing conflict far beyond the limits of a royal melee. From the fields of Fontenay to the ports of Acre, the medieval shift toward larger armies and maritime logistics meant that these victories were no longer just about defeating a rival king. They were the primary way to physically dictate the borders of Europe. By the mid-20th century, monarchs are absent from the front lines. War has been fully industrialized. The objective is no longer capturing a crown. Entire populations are mobilized to ensure the total survival of the modern nation-state against competing industrial powers. On June 25, 1941, the Soviet Union launches an air offensive against Finland, igniting the continuation war. Exactly 3 years later to the day, June 25, 1944, that conflict peaks with the start of the Battle of Tali-Ihantala. Look at the sheer volume of destruction. We have moved entirely past infantry shield walls and wooden galleons. This is the largest battle ever fought in the Nordic countries, driven by massive armored divisions and continuous rolling artillery barrages tearing apart the terrain. The Finnish defensive line absorbed the momentum of the Soviet armor. Their concentrated artillery fire broke the Soviet spearheads, successfully stalling a massive military advance. National borders are no longer drawn by tactical maneuvering alone. Sovereignty in the 20th century relies on a nation's ability to manufacture munitions and feed a mechanized meat grinder until the opponent exhausts their own resources. As the timeline moves into the late 20th century, the application of power shifts again. The massive tank formations of the World Wars give way to systemic political upheaval, guerrilla tactics, and decolonization. On June 25, 1975, Mozambique officially declares independence. After a decade of armed struggle, they finally break the grip of the Portuguese colonial empire, securing victory through a mobilized civilian population rather than a traditional standing army. For years, Portuguese-controlled Mozambique functioned as a massive colonial buffer state in southern Africa. When that buffer vanished overnight, neighboring white minority governments, specifically Rhodesia and apartheid South Africa, lost their geographic shield. They were now fully exposed to a rapidly decolonizing continent. But the removal of colonial rule didn't end the violence. As a newly sovereign nation, Mozambique immediately became a fresh ideological battleground, with competing factions funded by Cold War superpowers looking to secure proxy influence in the region. From 524 to 1975, the core sample of June 25th reveals exactly how conflict scales. We move from medieval kings fighting, through industrialized destruction of global wars, to political movements that dissolved empires. 1,500 years of June 25ths show that while the mechanisms of power, swords, artillery, or political manifestos change, the drive to contest and redraw the world's borders remains a constant.